directed by Sohail Parsa, presented by a Modern Times stage company in conjunction with Aluna Theatre. Playwright Federico Garcia Larsa writes a play about a wedding. Getting bored? Thinking you know everything? No, just wait. Its plot twist lies in its backstory, with the sudden appearance of the bride's former lover, Leonardo, who suddenly makes his appearance on the wedding day. Now, just when things may seem to be a little bit like a runaway bride scenario, it's not quite that at all. The plot takes a sudden, gritty, dark turn by its end. Now, let's open with the characters, critics. What were your thoughts of the actors' performances?
I think the acting in Blood Wedding was very highly stylized. The delivery of lines and actions done were fantastic and no loss of energy. The performance was supercharged.
I didn't like the stylization. The way that actors like Beatrice Pisano, who played the mother, would pose and then speak, and then pose and then speak. It felt very unnatural.
But it was justified. Nothing in this play felt natural. And in combination with Lorca's stylized text, the movements were very powerful.
That's true, Oriana. Those sharp, stylized movements were also incorporated in the dance sequence that the chorus participated in as well.
That's right, and I think that the dance was a way to highlight the culture and traditions within the play, without just pointing to one strictly.
I had no problem with the dance itself, but I find that it was usually incorporated with scenes that included the ensemble, which I felt were sort of uncomfortable and felt under-rehearsed in comparisons to the scenes with the leading actors.
The scenes that included the ensemble were also the scenes where it was much harder to follow the action of the play. Now, this could be an issue with the writing, but I think it's more likely it's an issue of lack of clear intention within the actors.
There were some great performances and very clear intention between many of the actors. Derek Kwan, for example, played a terrific boy in this play, the husband who's getting married. He had created very believable relationships between him and his fellow actors. For example, the love of his life, Bahara Yaragi. Very believable love there. And then the bond with his mother, adorable.
The relationship between the mother and the father in the play, played by Stephen Bush, was very believable in all its awkward charmingness. Well played by both actors.
On the topic of believability of relationships in the play, it was interesting that that wasn't affected by the show being colorblind casted, because it didn't matter. We believed in the well-acted moments, and we didn't believe in the poor-acted moments, because when it comes down to it, it doesn't matter.
That's something actually near and dear to the heart of modern times. They mandate to cast based on talent and not based on cultural identity.
I just want to bring up the fact that many of the actors played multiple roles, and they did a good job transitioning between them.
But sometimes I found it really hard to follow those transitions. For example, Sochi Freed played both the woman and the moon, and I got lost trying to figure out who she was some of the time when she was in the upstairs window especially.
Now, it seems that the major performance flaws came from more of a conceptual disconnect. What I mean is, maybe not everyone was grounded in the world of the play. But, however, you all brought up some great points, so not to worry, points will be distributed to everyone. That's some solid thoughts on the actors. Now, let's have a look at what they wore, shall we? Thoughts on costumes, critics?
I'd like to start off by saying that the costumes for Blood Wedding were done terrifically. They stayed to this time period of the play, and the simplicity of them just worked so well throughout.
Yeah, I agree that the costumes were well done, but I could argue that there was almost too much detail. With such a minimalistic set, the amount of detail that was put into it kind of made the costume stand out.
I think the attention to detail was the perfect way to balance out the minimalistic set. The costumes were in black and white, but there was pops of color, like in the boy's cummerbund and in Leonardo's wife's pink cardigan.
There were also the characters of the moon and death that broke that pattern by bringing these muted blue and pink hues into their costumes. I think that overall we can say that these costumes really enforce the world of the play.
Speaking of the minimalist set, what did you guys think of that?
The set was incredible. Along the left and right hand sides were these ceiling high pane windows that created wings for the actors. They allowed the audience to look in on extra plot points that took place behind the frosted glass. It allowed us to have a little bit more understanding of the world beyond the stage, but still really kept the focus on driving the main plot forward.
Visually, the windows were stunning. You're right. But it often looked like there was people waiting to get on stage, which kind of was a little awkward because we didn't know if it was intentional or if they were just waiting for a cue.
I'm with Oriana on this one. The way they utilized behind the set to have like people running away and drunken hookups, it was very well utilized to create multiple plots going on at once.
The addition of the overhead window was a good attempt at being able to differentiate between when the actress was playing Leonardo's wife and when she was playing the moon. It didn't always work super clearly, but the thought was there.
I also think that the addition of the minimalistic set pieces were really needed. They provided a level of functionality as the furniture, opposed to just the visually appealing windows.
Yes, well, while minimalist set design wasn't the priority, how did the lights factor into this playing space? Critics?
I was blown away by the amount of detail and effort put into every cue for the lighting. It was astounding.
I agree. When I walked into the theater, I was amazed by the sheer number of lights hanging on the grid. I wondered how they were going to use them all.
I know, and it's like they designed a whole new plot for every scene. Very impressive and very detailed.
Clearly there was a lot of effort put into it, but I might argue that there was almost too much effort. I felt that the lighting took away, or at least didn't add anything to the scene. There were moments when this stark red light would come and it really contrasted with the current colors. I just felt like it wasn't representing what was being shown on stage and really took me out of the play.
Although I disagree there was too much effort, I have to say that the lights may have taken a little bit away from the play for me. I don't know if it was anyone else, but I spent more time looking up at the grid and the lights trying to figure out what techniques they used to get the terrific lighting on stage.
Any specific examples, Kevin? You could use these points.
Of course. One of my favorite parts was the scene when they're running through the forest. And if you notice, they had like the forest, the moonlight shining through the leaves. How do you do that, they may ask? Well, I believe they had those reflective mirror balls just hitting under the top of the set. And the light shining through theirs and reflected through the translucent glass to create that feeling. I could tell because the light reflected up into the grid. You can see the shadows and light casted up there. Clearly, it wasn't a gobo as I originally thought.
Good eye, Kevin. You stole the round. Now, let's shift our focus to the sound design. Thoughts?
I thought the sound design was perfect. Not too many cues, but not so little that it renders the sound designer useless.
I don't know, I liked it, don't get me wrong, but I still feel like there were quite a few issues. Okay, the horses. The sound quality had this sort of fuzziness to it, and it felt like it was quite obviously and poorly recorded.
I agree. And the baby cry, ugh. Okay, I have honestly never heard a recorded baby cry that sounded anything like a real one, and this was no exception.
Yeah, but what about the party ambiance? It was a perfect mixture of voices and sounds, and it didn't overpower the scenes. And then there was the pre-recorded voice sequences, and then in the woods it gave more of an ambiance and a dreamlike feel, and it reminded the audience that there was supernatural elements.
Yes, in the way the violin played in conjunction with the silhouette, I thought it was brilliant. Although I wish it may have been a little bit more in sync, but that's not the sound designer's responsibility. And the glass breaking, it made me jump out of my seat.
I guess. But another problem that I had with the sound, which was not exactly the sound designer's fault or any intended sound within the show, but because I was sitting at the back, I was right near the stage manager and I could hear all the cues being called. It really took me out of the play.
Elizabeth, Oriana, sorry, but it's time for your curtain call. And now, let's move on to the bonus round with Jen and Kevin.
Personally, I think the show tried to do too much as a whole. There were too many plot points for me to follow along, and the production elements there were so many of them. Luckily they were there so I could focus on it.
Yeah, but Kevin, you could have been paying attention, and if you were, you would have understood. All of these different things going on, they were a lot, don't get me wrong, but they were supported. They were supported by the great acting put into it, the set, the costumes, everything was supported.
I agree everything was great, but as a whole, I just didn't get it. I got lost, I got taken out. So I just had to look up at the lights and try and understand that.
Were you paying attention, or were you just gazing?
I
Gazing
tried.
at the lights, gazing at the lights, Kevin. Pay attention to the actors, and you would have understood because it was brilliant.
I tried really hard.
So
but
why
I just
didn't it
couldn't.
work?
I don't know. Is that my fault? No.
No. Everything was supported. Everything made sense.
Jen, congratulations, you won the round. And that's it for our episode of Theater in the Rounds. Thanks for watching, and before you go, please check out the link below to check out the rest of our videos.